President Biden is in corn-rich Iowa today with the goal of easing the burden of record-high gas prices. The Environmental Protection Agency is allowing the widespread sale of gasoline mixed with a 15% ethanol blend through the summer. It is typically banned from the beginning of June until mid-September due to concerns of adding smog to the environment in warm temperatures. Stephen Gruber-Miller is here with us now to talk all things Iowa. He is a statehouse and politics reporter for the Des Moines Register. Stephen, thanks so much for making some time for us today. As you well know, President Biden lost the Iowa primary in 2020. I wonder how Iowans view him now that he's been in the job for a bit and his role in the inflated gas prices so far.
Sure. President Biden is returning to Iowa for the first time since he lost the state in the 2020 election. He lost it by about 8 points to former President Trump. And currently, a Des Moines Register poll has found his approval is about 35% among Iowans, disapproval at about 59%. So facing some headwinds, and his approval ratings have dropped since he got into office. Republicans are trying to tie the increased gas prices to his policies. And as you've heard, President Biden is trying to tie those prices to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So there are some competing narratives about who's to blame for that right now.
I imagine that today's news, though, sits well with many Iowans. What impact do you think this emergency waiver will have in the state?
Yeah, this is something that both Republicans and Democrats in Iowa have been calling for, allowing summertime sale of E15 gasoline with 15% ethanol. There are a lot of ethanol producers in Iowa. It's a big business in the state, and they think that the year-round sales will help boost those producers financially, as well as lowering gas prices. I think the president has estimated it might lower gas prices by about 10 cents for some people. It might be more in areas where there is more access to the E15.
And of course, it's not just about people who live in Iowa. All of our viewers who don't are wondering whether this is going to impact their gas prices outside of Iowa as well. Do you think it will?
Yeah, E15 isn't sold everywhere in the country, but it is sold outside of Iowa. So wherever it's sold, I think that it will have an impact there. And I think it's probably one of many strategies that the Biden administration is using to try to lower these prices.
I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about the primary calendar, which is hard to believe is already very close to us today. And critics of Iowa being the first in the nation caucus say the state isn't representative of the nation's. What do you think a change would mean for Iowa voters? Of course, all of us have gotten used to that sort of being the, with a capital T, kickoff to the elections.
Yeah, Iowans take a lot of pride in being the first state in the country to make their preference known for the presidential race. And I think that there's a bipartisan effort. Democrats and Republicans are actually aligned on this in Iowa. They've had a long time sort of alliance to try to keep the caucuses first in the nation. So there's a big effort to make sure that doesn't change. But the DNC is moving forward with a plan that could allow states to apply for a spot to be among the early states to cast their ballots and make their preferences known. And so that's a threat to Iowa, essentially. And the state Democratic Party chair has said he's going to fight like hell and make sure that Iowa still retains its place that it's had for about 50 years now.
And you know these voters really well. I just wonder quickly if you think it'll discourage people if it was no longer first, if it would discourage voters from going to the polls.
It's interesting because being first allows Iowans a really up-close view of these presidential candidates. They can see them 5, 6, 7, 8 times. They can go to their neighbor's living room and see the candidate there in a really intimate setting and get to ask questions. And there are a lot of Iowans who take that seriously and really value their role in that vetting process. But there are other Iowans who really feel like the caucus system doesn't allow people to participate if they're working multiple jobs or if they have struggles with childcare or if they have disabilities. And so they don't feel like it's as inclusive as it could be. So there are some Iowans who do want to get rid of the caucuses, move to a primary, even if that would mean not being first anymore.
Okay, we are staying tuned. Thank you so much, Stephen Gruber-Miller, for coming on with us today.
Thank you very much.